Welcome, everyone. This is our Android Week with Alan Furstenberg on a train or something. Bruce Turner in Lynchburg, Virginia. Duke Carrico in Kingsport, Tennessee. Cadeas Kalut in Newport Beach, California. And in Menifee, California with a migraine, Pam Adger. This is our Android Week. Good to have you with us. Alan is running late. Pam is under the weather. But we have Cadeas Kalut here, thank God. One time I had to do this show by myself, Cadeas. It was a disaster. Train wreck.
I watched that show, actually.
It was short. All right, so our first story is about Amazon. Apparently they only sold, as of the last report, 35,000 of these Fire phones. And they've just taken a $170 million write-off over it. So that's big bucks. The stock is taking a hit. Frankly, I think it's a buy. I would buy it. I have faith in Jeff Bezos. He's trying to lay out, when you're building out Walmart, it's expensive, and you're capturing all the stuff. And then at some point, you can settle down and milk it. But anyway, I digress. What do you think? You have a Fire phone.
Testing purposes,
what do you think about it, and why has it not gained traction?
Like I said before on the when we first started talking about the Fire phone way back when, the Fire phone, it's not a phone that anybody should buy, really. I mean, it's a limited audience of people who are techie and use Amazon, and they use Amazon religiously. So I mean, that would probably be the only scenario. And even if you were techie, you kind of wouldn't want the Amazon phone, only because it keeps you disconnected. I mean, you can't install all the different apps that you want. You're kind of just stuck inside their ecosystem. So yeah, I would totally not recommend this phone to anybody. And that's why they only sold 30,000 worldwide. I mean, that's it sucks. I mean, you Xing out the Google Play Store for all that time. I mean, you're kind of.
How does this happen? You're a developer. How does something like this happen? I mean,
Well, I wouldn't develop for a phone that doesn't have have a user base.
No,
So,
I mean, how does it happen that this gets through all the checks and balances at Amazon, and they're all like, "This is going to be badass"? And
well, it's
then,
their first phone, so they didn't really have any.
Done.
go ahead, Alan.
What'd you say?
I said because Bezos said make it so. So it was.
Joining us from a tanning bed somewhere in New York is Alan Furstenberg. He's our white balance coordinator. Yeah, but don't you think these things go through? No, you were okay before.
No, I was there.
I'm just trolling you.
No, I don't think it goes through anything.
But what did they have to do any checks and balances up against? They had nothing to measure. This is their first venture. So, like, they didn't have anything to really measure. Right, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, you think at some point some guys would have tested it, maybe had some sort of group or something. I don't know.
Well, I'm sure they tested it, and they all did, convinced each other that it was just fine and honky-dory,
They said all
and
the right
everyone
things
wants a
to
phone
Jeff.
that they can buy things with, because that's all you use a phone for, is buying shit. Right?
Yeah. Ironically, on the shitter, usually.
And honestly, I really think that the phone was crippled by taking away the Google Play Store all that time. I mean, I honestly think that was the problem. Had they not done that, I think that they would actually have an okay phone. Still not worth $200, but maybe $100. I mean, that would have been a good phone. Had everything else, but you're saying, hey, I can't be a part of the world. I want to be stuck on the Amazon planet. I mean, like, that doesn't make any sense. But Planet Amazon.
I guess nobody wanted to tell Jeff it was a bad idea.
You?
No, of course not.
You? Right. Anyway.
This is the guy that bought the Washington Post. He never makes bad decisions. Okay. All right, so next up, and we will get to it. We're going to talk about a software story about Amazon in just a moment. But first, let's go to an Android Wear update. Adds offline music, Bluetooth headphones, and GPS support. When it initially debuted, correct me if I'm wrong, Alan, basically it would tell you the time, and that's about it. unless it was hooked up to a phone.
No.
No?
Oh, no.
I don't know.
No.
I don't have one yet.
No. No.
All right, so tell
No.
me what this is about.
Just what it says, that they've now included with it applications that let you play music in disconnected mode, and do GPS stuff, which is pretty remarkable considering that none of the devices out there right now have a GPS. What's that look, Cadeas?
Only the Sony one. The Sony one has a GPS. But
Is
that
it
one,
out?
I guess that's not quite out. That's what I was trying to remember, if it was out or not.
Yeah, I didn't think the Sony one was out yet. So, this is progress. This is a good step, but it's a little step.
Do you think that this was necessary?
Well, that all depends. Do they want to look stupid when Apple rolls out theirs? No. So yes, this was necessary.
But internet connection, is that useful?
I missed half of that. I'm sorry.
Oh, my internet's doing that again.
I'm not sure if it's yours or mine.
Is it? I mean, what use case do you see this in besides Strava? Strava is the only thing that I can see is being useful in this scenario for that. Because Strava can track the GPS, but it doesn't necessarily need to upload the data until later. Whereas I don't see, like, if I'm out in the street, why would I need GPS randomly on my watch?
Turn-by-turn navigation without your phone.
But how do you initiate the directions at that point with no internet connection?
You initiate it from your house. If you're going on a run, for example, this now lets you, it'll tell you what your course needs to be. You don't need to drag your phone around with you. I assume that it's probably more for things like walk tracking than navigation, but I think having the tool available is a good thing.
Okay, so more a niche case thing then, not necessarily something.
And watch is a niche case.
That's true too. I mean, I didn't wear one all the way up until now, so.
Right. I mean, you can't say that any particular application is a niche case because the whole damn watch is.
Do we have any numbers? I mean, are these things? Do we have any numbers from anyone who's selling an Android Wear watch to know if? I've never seen one in the wild.
We're outselling the Apple Watch right now. That's all we know.
Say again. I'm sorry.
They're outselling the Apple Watch right now. That's all we know.
Do we know that for sure?
Of course we know it for sure.
How?
Because you can't buy an Apple Watch yet.
Oh. Okay, I got it. You got me, big guy. Why I oughta. Okay. Yeah, that's the one thing we control Craig about with Apple. All right, and on our previous story, Wendell notes Amazon. He speculates Amazon overestimated their brand / ecosystem versus Google's. I think I would agree with that. So I guess it was a big party.
I would agree with it too. I mean, I think it's a shame in some ways. One of the things that we haven't talked on this show about is that they have a version of the Fire tablet for kids, which is amazing. I predicted that we would need that we would see such a thing. And it's Amazon that's delivering it, and nobody else really. There's Nabi, which is great, but none of the big names are doing it, and they're missing out.
I mean,
Google's providing no support.
And if you notice, Amazon's done a lot of targeting towards kids, though. That's one of the things that they have done right. Is that they've done? I think they have what's the new Fire TV that's supposed to be kind of like sort of Chromecast in a way, size-wise anyway. I mean, that's another thing where Amazon is really targeting the kids. So.
Yeah. And, I said 2 years ago now? Yes, 2 years ago when we first learned about Android for education or whatever, that I thought it was good, but they needed to really step up the focus. Google didn't, Amazon did. There
are apps for kids, of course, in Android and iOS, right? But it's not like a total wrapper where you have complete control and there's no way out, like the Fire. I mean, there is is it the Nabi, or they pronounce it?
No, I believe it's Nabi. There are a couple of others, but they're all kind of, fringe.
My neighbor, his daughter was using my tablet for a while, and the tablet was her babysitter. So I created an account for her, which was kind of kludgy to set up. First, I didn't know how to do it, so I created a Google account. I didn't realize that an Android tablet account is different from a Google account. But I didn't have any options to say like no porn or, not that I would want to monitor her stuff, but just to, if I were a parent like you are, and you want that control, the Fire is clearly the better option, because I think it'll report back, or the other one, it'll tell you like, you can track stuff. I'm surprised even with the tremendous growth in students using like Chromebooks and Android devices that they're not jumping more on the bandwagon to provide something that parents would want or teachers would want, that sort of thing.
Well, they're trying to provide what teachers want. They're not attuned at all to what parents want, I think. Anyway, okay. Move on.
All right, next up is the headline is "Don't toss that old Android out. Turn it into a Chromecast receiver." So apparently there's this app, and with the right cable, you can connect an Android device to a high-definition television, add in the app Cast Receiver, and your Android can act like a Chromecast for many different apps and for screen sharing. So this is, instead of spending $35 for a Chromecast, you can get that old phone, like my Motorola Photon, which may or may not work. I think it does have HDMI out. Is this silly, or am I missing something? I guess it's okay. Talk about a cluster. Any thoughts?
I don't see how it would be a cluster. It's hardware hacking. It's repurposing old hardware. Go Cadeas.
Well, I just say go buy a Chromecast for $35 and get rid of the old phone. I mean, why are you building a Chromecast when you might sell the phone for $60? So sell the phone, $60, get a Chromecast for $30, and then you got your other $30 for yourself. I mean, I don't know. I don't see that as being very useful.
How much is an HDMI cable for a phone?
That's probably $20, $30 within itself. So like that's something. Just go buy a Chromecast.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. It's a cool thing to do if you got hundreds of phones laying around. You just want to show somebody. It's kind of like the stylus on your Note 2. It's not something that you use.
No.
All the time. It's just only show it to say that you have it. So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So there you go. If you're a hacker, if you're one of those guys who's used to get the Radio Shack kits and build stuff, then you can do this. Okay, next up, Amazon. This was really interesting. Amazon quietly launches a functional app store within its main Android application. Before, they had the Amazon App Store app, which you had to download from Amazon. It wasn't in the Play Store because Google wants control. But now they're sort of treating, even if you download a free app on Amazon, with the app, you're technically buying the app from Amazon with a price of $0. So now they're putting these apps as just regular products in their regular Amazon app. It's, I guess, more convenient, but it's running an end run around the Play rules, isn't it, Alan or Cadeas? Are we going to see like a reaction?
I think it's a little too late for that. What do you think, Alan? I think they're way too late.
You mean in terms of trying to get people to use their store?
Right. I think it's kind of late at this point.
It's kind of late. I'm sure it'll work at least a little, but once you have Play, why? Most people don't bother with anything else because there's no benefit.
The only benefit was they had a free app of the day. They still do, and sometimes it's an awful app with like 2 stars. It's not always a
Right, and in order to use it, you need to turn off security features on your phone, which throw up big red warnings. Nobody does that shit.
Okay. But are you surprised Google has allowed this to go on? Assuming
no,
they're
because
aware of it.
Because Google has always maintained that it's perfectly fine for users to use other stores. And if they change that now, they'd be inviting problems.
But I don't think that they in the past had allowed those stores to be distributed in the Play Store. And in effect,
I don't think they cared one way or the other. But maybe they, I don't know.
Okay. All right. So there we go. Amazon won. Google won. All right. Or Android won. All right. Next up is Microsoft attempts to improve Android with new Garage apps. There's 2. I haven't played with either one, but there's the Next lock screen, which is basic. It's pretty impressive. It gives you. There's the little video that shows you some of the functions. You can get some notifications. You can answer a phone call from your lock screen. And I don't know how this compares to other lock screens. And then there's another. Go ahead.
Answer a phone call from just about any lock screen I've ever seen.
So you don't see anything revolutionary here.
Oh, I didn't say that. I haven't looked at the app too carefully.
There's a 1 minute
coming
video
out
that's
of
pretty good, and in this thing we linked to. Go ahead, Alan. I'm sorry.
I think it's always good to see Microsoft actually using, decent operating systems to experiment with. The Microsoft Garage also, as part of this, they released stuff for iOS. They released stuff for Android Wear. I think their Wear experiment actually looks kind of interesting, because instead of triggering a search using keywords, it's triggering a search using wrist motion. I don't know if that's any better, but I think it's an interesting experiment.
My only thought to this is, I mean, and I'm still kind of glancing at the video, it looks like that all they're doing is recreating the phone experience on the lock screen. So if the lock screen is that annoying, then just get rid of the lock screen. Like, I mean, when I'm doing everything that I can do in the phone on the lock screen, isn't the lock screen useless at that point?
Well, but Cadeas, that's what everyone is trying to do. It's what Google is doing with Android L. It's what Apple is doing with iOS, is shoving as much as they can onto the lock screen.
So get this.
And you've been able to do that on Android's lock screen for, I think, since 4.2 or 4.3.
I don't know. I just don't see a use case where if I can control my entire phone from the lock screen, then what is the lock screen good for?
I think it's not everything, and that's the important part, is what does it let you do and what doesn't it let you do.
It brings a lot of the functionality of what people use their phones for right there to the lock screen.
Well, that's what we're seeing with Android L and with iOS.
Okay.
I don't pretend for a moment that it's good, but I mean, it's the same thing. Well, with the current version, with the current version of Android, why is it you can take a picture from your lock screen?
I don't know. I think that's useful. You don't think that's useful?
I think it's incredibly useful. I don't think it's as useful as having glass, but it's incredibly useful. And I think what this is saying is there are other things that are also incredibly useful from a lock screen that don't compromise safety and security. And if you look at the camera app, it's actually very clever. You can take pictures, but you can only see the pictures that you took in that session. You can't see your entire gallery. So, it's attention to that detail that's important.
I think that's the first time that I've allowed the Microsoft logo on the program.
Oh, God, I know you hate Microsoft with a fiery passion.
I don't like their Scroogled campaign. Okay, so, that's cool. I guess this is sort of like the 20% project, right? It's the Microsoft Garage. It's stuff that they're working on.
It's closer to Google X, actually. These are projects that are, a step ahead. Okay, so maybe it's not quite Google X.
I don't know if the next lock screen is Google X worthy. But yeah, I get your meaning. So it's like officially employee stuff.
Like the R&D department.
And of course they all, like any company, there are Microsoft employees who personally use Android or iOS and not the Windows Phone. I would guess a healthy number. And of course, in the course of their job, because Microsoft does apps for all three platforms, that they would use them. Okay, cool. And the Journey and Notes, did you talk about that while I was multitasking? The second app? The second one is called Journeys and Notes. It's designed as a way to keep a log of travel history, similar to Foursquare in the sense that you can access tips from fellow travelers who have traveled the same route as you. It's really designed to be a new social app, like leaving a trail of digital memories along your travel route. So, yeah, check them out, in Microsoft.com/garage. Okay, next up is a discussion on, we've talked about this a number of times on our other program, Google Plus Week, which is Fridays at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific on YouTube Live every Friday night, Google Plus Week. But the FBI is trying to convince Apple or Congress to force Apple and Google to put a back door into iOS and Android so that if they have a warrant, they would be able to get past the encryption. And it's unlikely because I think two prominent on the Republican side, Darrell Issa, and on the Democrat side, I forget the name, but it's in the article we reference here, are both against this. And I think the American people would be against this. Probably. I'm not sure. I would guess a majority. And largely in the post-Snowden era, there's sort of a backlash against snooping in general because there's, I would say, a majority of Americans probably think it's been abused and overused. So, any thoughts on this, guys?
No, I don't really have any thoughts, but I think there's a comment somewhere. Ah, here it is. Elizabeth says that tech companies are protected under the U.S. Constitution, so no, they don't need to share their information with other users and people. So
I don't know if that would apply. Because certainly, I mean, if they wanted to get your Gmail, they can do a warrant and get it. Could you?
Right, but that's her point. She's saying that she doesn't feel that they need to share their information with others, so to speak.
I think in the past that the Supreme Court's ruled consistently that they can't prevent it, but that this is a unique case. I guess. Can you think of an analogy, Alan, that would be appropriate to? There are other encryption. There are all sorts of encryption things. I mean, you can encrypt your hard drive, right? And it's legal to sell that technology, and the company that sells the technology to you has no ability to unencrypt it, right?
Here's the deal. We fought the crypto wars back in the 90s. We won. They're trying to start it up again for no justified reason. They'll put up straw man arguments, but there's no justified reason. I think this is bogus, and hopefully we've got at least enough Congress people that'll recognize how bogus this is.
I think if this had come up as it did right after 9/11, I think this would have easily gone through Congress. But in the post-Snowden era, I think the onus is on, it would take another major thing. For example, if they found they couldn't encrypt the phone, and then the guy turned out to be a terrorist, one of these lone wolf guys that are in the news this week, you might see some sort of appetite for this. But in the post-Snowden era, I don't see Congress, implementing anything like this, any kind of force. I just don't see a majority of both houses of Congress and the president signing that. Okay, anything else on that? We're good? All right, next up, as I mentioned, our other program on Friday night is Google Plus Week, and one of the stories we'll talk about. This is interesting. We saw the big rollout of Apple Pay, which is similar to Google Wallet, and except we thought it would be more widely adopted. But now there's competition, and we see that CVS has followed Rite Aid in shutting off Apple Pay, and the reason is that a bunch of retailers have a technology called the Merchant Customer Exchange. That's the outfit, the company, or the whatever you call it, the group, and it's currency, like current with the letter C, is their product. And basically what this is about is the retailers cannot stand having to pay 2 to 3% to Visa and MasterCard, and they basically have a monopoly. I mean, there's Discover and there's Amex, but Visa, they all charge. And they're pissed off about 2 or 3%. These are companies, retailers sometimes only make 5 or 10% profit, period, on all their revenue. So you're taking 30% of their profit and giving it to Visa and MasterCard, potential profit, right? And they don't like it. And Walmart said, "I'm for this as long as it screws Visa," or the former Walmart CEO said, "As long as it hurts Visa, we're for it."
So what do you think on this?
I think I can't blame them. I think if their homegrown alternative is going to result in much less cost because there's no profit built into it, right? If they own it, currency thing, and maybe it would cost like 0.5% instead of
But you think that
3%.
the way that they're implementing it is pretty bad?
Yeah, they don't know what they're doing.
I have no clue. It's not that they don't know what they're doing. They are recklessly putting our data in jeopardy, and they are thrilled to do it. They want to do it. They want to have a major security breach on their systems. I cannot understand why else anyone would even think this is a good idea.
Well, at least they were smart enough to not say it's Rite Aid and CVS product, but they come up with some third party that they can change the name, like when Blackwater got in trouble and overseas and they changed the name. You know, lipstick on a pig. So you think
This is a disaster waiting to happen.
as our Visa and MasterCard. My card
No.
was compromised twice in the same week.
Yeah, but Visa and MasterCard are willing to take the blame for that. They took the blame for it. They're paying the cost to recoup it. Under currency, you get to pay the cost to recoup it because these are not. This is not hooked up to a credit card system. This is directly wired into your bank account.
So they're bypassing yeah, it's a debit from your.
Right, the goal is
This is one thing that Craig says. He is Craig Shipp, who's a panelist on our other program, Google Plus Week. I don't know if I mentioned that. He is always yelling at me, don't ever use a debit card. Use a credit card. And the reason for that is if your account is compromised, as mine was, they actually took money out of my account. And then I had to protest it, and that money was gone. It was my payroll account. So what if it hadn't been a couple $100, but if it was $20,000, right?
Yep. And here's the thing, Dan. Under currency, that $24,000, that $20,000 is taken out of your debit account. Your bank had no say in it, so they can't do anything about it. The vendor doesn't give a damn because they're only doing this to maximize their profit. So they're minimizing security. This is a fiasco waiting to happen.
The only thing worse is when your personal when your identity is stolen. Because I had an ex-girlfriend that happened to her,
and here's some good news.
You are guilty until proven innocent. You
and
have to spend days fixing that. Go ahead, Alan.
You want the good news when it comes to currency about what they're going to do with your personal information? They're going to collect as much of it as they can. In order to sign up for currency, you need to provide a picture of your driver's license.
Oh, God.
Provide your social security number. And you need to provide a bank account. So, kudos to currency for screwing up internet security.
Okay, so we have some I'm going to read some. I'm not getting comments in the comment tracker. I'm pulling up my YouTube page here where I'm streaming this thing. And we've got several comments on this. Wendell said on the previous story about the FBI lobbying Congress to pass a bill, he said no matter how well-intentioned, any backdoor will end up being exploited. He also says MCX had these retailers sign a non-compete contract, a foolish move on the part of these retailers. So maybe they don't have a choice. Rich Had said, I heard that...
Honestly, they're happy about that. They don't want to, they would much rather just use this really crappy system that's going to that's going to screw over their customers than use Google Pay and Apple.
They'd rather have, if they can get currency right, which it looks like they're not, based on your analysis, at least for now, then they'd rather use that than pay Apple 3% instead of Visa and MasterCard.
Right.
And it may end up being more expensive because aren't they still tied to a credit card? It may actually be a markup on top of what they're paying now.
No, it's not tied to a credit card at all.
You're using your ACH information, your routing and account numbers, Dan.
And go ahead with Eric's comment.
Oh, and Eric goes on to say that if history has taught us anything the last 15 years is that Apple will win this.
Oh, yeah, don't piss off Apple fanboys, which they just did.
Yeah, Rich Had said he heard that CVS had it accidentally. They activated it and then pulled it, and now people are very upset.
Well, here's the thing, and I'm sorry the comment's stuck on the screen, but here's the thing. It's not that CVS didn't know they had it. CVS has always been able to use Google Wallet. Whenever I got to go buy something and I have to go to CVS, I'm able to use Tap to Pay. It's been like that since 2011. But when they enabled Apple Pay, since Apple Pay is nothing different from Google Wallet, all they did was just be able to use it there. And so now when they started seeing this influx in the, because there was only a few places you could really use Apple Pay right now, which is the same places that you can use Google Wallet, they started seeing these influx of transactions. And they were all credit card transactions processed through Apple Pay, and they shut it down 2 days later. And so that's kind of how it happened. Then it went from down the whole NFC mechanism on their terminals.
Also, Wendell notes, he opines, currency is a bad idea. It hurts consumers more than it helps retailers, which is a wonderful synopsis of what Alan said. So what's the solution, Alan? I don't want to get hacked. And this happened to me, as you know, we talked about it on the Friday show. My Facebook ad account got hacked that was dormant for like 3 years, and all of a sudden I was buying hundreds of dollars in ads for some spam site selling I forget what. And then the same week, my account was just generally compromised, and they sent me a replacement card, and then they sent me a second replacement card. So we want the convenience of being able to go to the store and to buy your 7-Eleven cup of coffee or your lawnmower from Walmart or what have you with a card. But we keep seeing these incidents, and now there are technologies coming down the pike.
Well, no, stop right there, Dan. Yet the reason why technologies are only coming down the pike is because the credit card companies thought it was too expensive to implement this, and it's finally becoming more costly to them to keep up with the fraud than it is to actually implement the damn technology that Europe's been using for 10 years. This is technology. We saw prototypes of this technology 15, 20 years ago. 20 years ago, you could get something called a Java card. And that's what this is.
I'm reminded of the movie. I don't know if it was Aaron Brockovich or one of those type movies. I think it was about a car thing, and Fred Thompson, who went on to become a senator, played an actor, and he talked about the bean counters, that they deliberately let something slide because they determined that the lawsuits would be less expensive than implementing the fix. I think you're arguing the same thing here. Wendell says, what happens when users want to, and I can't answer this, maybe Alan can, what happens when users want to use their NFC-enabled chip and PIN credit cards?
It won't work. They'd have to only use the chip and PIN. They won't be able to bring in the NFC aspect of it. They literally are, as this particular commenter said, it's his understanding that these companies are shutting off NFC altogether, meaning no Apple Pay or Google Wallet, because of the influx of those charges. They're looking at, and people are now just using Apple Pay and probably even Google Wallet just to test it out, to see what it's like. So in this, who would normally spend cash at these select stores or credit card or whatever, just wants to test out their Apple Pay. And so they've all of a sudden seen an influx, because there's only a small list of stores that even have NFC right now. I mean, no stores launched with just now enabling NFC in their stores. Like, it's been there. The stores that are already accepting it, it's been there. So essentially they just ended up turning it off. They didn't want all those credit card charges, because all those people would have paid cash last week or something else. So I mean, that's
what about overseas? Because you go to Japan. I heard that everyone's paying it for stuff with their phone over there, and in Asia in general. Is that overstated?
Using RFID, at least in Japan, I know they use more RFID related technology. So, and they've been using that for 20 years. So it's something that's already been in place. So when you go through like the train, you can't use NFC; it's RFID. So
yeah, and there, in Japan, you would have things like, you would use your phone, but in the sense of, text this number to this message, to this telephone number, and it will dispense you a Coke.
Don't we have something similar to that in the United? I mean, for subway systems and toll roads, don't they frequently have some sort of thing you waive? I don't know if it's prepaid or if it's attached to an account.
Yeah, you've got transponder systems for toll roads, and you have RFID or NFC-like systems for subways. And some of those are based on European technology, because the Europeans did it first. I believe Oyster was actually developed in the UK first, and is now used all over the place in the US.
Rich had, let me do Kevin first. Kevin says chip and pin cannot come soon enough. Rich had says, Cadeas, where are the comments that you're showing coming from?
I don't know. I just grabbed the sources that were shared here. That I think you shared some sources here, Dan.
Yeah,
And
so I don't know where they're, I'm getting all different stuff. I'm getting on my actual screen here.
Most of them are probably from his Google Plus posts.
Okay. So yeah, he's got like 14 different streams here, and so I just said bring them all in. So we brought them in, and that's how I got these.
That's
Yeah,
probably
so I'm
Google
on the comment tracker, and if I check here, it's got, I don't know.
So what is the scenario? What is the scenario? YouTube comments aren't working, so I guess you need to be.
Yeah, we can't
telling
get
them.
any YouTube.
We haven't been able to for a few weeks.
I only have one comment on the actual standalone comment tracker here. That's from Joshua Hughes. And then actually on YouTube, I have in my streamer thing, it picks up comments actually made on YouTube. So I'm not seeing
Okay.
anything, but most of the comments, except for one that Cadeas had, I do not have in any source here. So
Okay. I don't know where this came from, but it's on point. Somebody's watching us somewhere.
please send a self-addressed stamped envelope to our Android Week P.O. Box. Yeah, so we'll discuss this topic on Friday. Actually, we'll just run a videotape of tonight's segment. Yeah, so in 5 years, when we go to Walmart or Target or the grocery store or whatever stores wherever Radio Shack used to be, how am I going to pay for my purchases, Cadeas?
Who knows at this point? Now we're getting pushback from everybody, so who knows?
The only
Cash.
thing I can tell you is it's not going to be with this currency crap.
It ain't gonna be currency. I'm not putting my routing and account numbers on anything, so they can give that up. They can take that and go to hell with it.
But is Craig right that the safest thing to do right now is to get a credit card and
Yes.
use that for everything? And that way, the key difference, a debit card, the money comes out of your account. With a credit card, you get a bill, and you should pay it every month in full. But then
Yes.
you can dispute it and say, no, hell no, I did not buy the Lamborghini.
Yes.
Okay. So Alan thinks yes. Any final thoughts, guys? Looking forward to Friday, I know. Okay, thanks. Kevin Bryan says, for commenting, should we go to Twitter at Google Plus Week? Well, actually, our Android Week.
Twitter would be good also. Those come through just fine.
Yeah, actually, call Cadeas. It's area code
913.
Yell at Cadeas. Okay, Kevin Bryan says chip and pin has been used in Canada for a while now. They push it hard in the retail stores. Okay, cool. So there we have it. Thank you for your comments. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it. We have, as I said, 2 programs. Google Plus Week is every Friday at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific on YouTube Live. And you can go to googleplusweek.com and get to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you like the program. Every Friday, I am on the Virginia Talk Radio Network at just after the CBS News at 11 a.m.
And that's on Saturday, not Friday, Dan.
Saturday morning, 11 a.m., 11:10 8 a.m. Pacific. For you early birds like Cadeas, right after he gets done with his morning jog. That's at virginiatalkradionetwork.com. And I do a segment on the big story of the week. So thank you all for watching. We'll be back next Monday, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific, for another edition of this program. And until then, have a wonderful Android week. We'll see you in 1 week.